All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. And thank you so much for joining us here today. So we're here today to talk about the following topic. We'll be discussing how to solve regulatory challenges around computer system validation for cloud-based clinical applications. So that's the topic that we have here today. So thank you so much for giving your time on this Tuesday. And kind of attending this live virtual session. So just a couple of notes as we get started. This session is being recorded for posterity, and it will be available on the Cloudbiz website. So just a note there. The second thing I'd like to point out before we get started is the Q&A feature. So on Zoom, we do have the Q&A box enabled, right? So we have set aside about 15 minutes or so at the end of this presentation to take all questions. So, as I will be kind of monitoring the question and answer box. If there's a quick answer, I'll just give it. If not, I'll pass it to, Rajendra, and then we can, address it together at the end. All right. So I think we should go ahead and get started, folks. We are just about 1 minute past noon here on the East Coast of the US. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So as discussed, today's topic is going to be computer system validation for cloud-based clinical applications. So let's start off with the agenda here. So folks, today we'll be kind of going through some of the challenges that exist in validating, cloud-based applications. We know how important that is. The entire validation process is in any health and life sciences or an R&D application. And there are some nuances when it comes to kind of cloud-based applications like Cloudbiz is. So we'll be talking about some of the challenges and some of the pain points. We'll be going through some of the expectations coming from the regulatory agencies, right, and kind of what they're looking for in terms of a fully validated system. And then we'll be addressing some of those challenges and talking about how to ensure compliance in the third section of our agenda here. And then I will be giving a really quick, about 5-minute demo of our Cloudbiz solution and kind of talking about how we leverage things like online e-signature and how we track this information as it moves through our system. So that's the agenda that we'll be talking through today. So let's start with the speaker. So I will go ahead and introduce myself. So folks, my name is Dushyant Raicher. I am the manager here in our product marketing kind of department. So I take care of multiple different things here at Cloudbiz, but one of the things that I do here is I help run some of these webinars that we do about every month or so. So I'm super excited to be talking to you here today. And I'm just kind of the moderator and I'll be doing some of the demo, but our real guest of honor is Rajendra Sadare. He is the head of quality and compliance here at Cloudbiz, and she'll be the person who'll be talking to you today about those regulatory challenges and then how we stay in compliance. So with that, Rajendra, please introduce yourself.
So thank you so much, Dushyant, for setting up the stage. So let me introduce myself. My name is Rajendra Sadare, and I'm having overall 18 years of experience in life science industry. So in Cloudbiz, I'm working as head of quality and compliance, and as a role, I'm playing the role of handling quality and compliance department, responsible for both internal and external audits, and also taking care of all validation activities at Cloudbiz. Go to the next slide.
Thank you for that intro, Rajendra. So folks, before we kind of get started and jump into our topic today, we'd like to take a step back and maybe give you a quick overview of Cloudbiz. So as some of you may know, right, Cloudbiz offers end-to-end cloud-based solutions for the entire health and life sciences and kind of research and development industry, right? And we keep customer centricity at the core of everything that we do. So back in 2014, Cloudbiz was founded by kind of both of our co-founders who were coming from each of them coming from about 20 plus years of experience in the health and life sciences industry. And as they kind of looked around, they realized that the lack of a end-to-end cloud-based validated solution that kind of puts together all the different pieces needed to run clinical trials and to run a full R&D department based in the cloud, right? So they came up with Cloudbiz, and our entire platform, which is 100% built on the Salesforce cloud, right? That combines all the different pieces needed to successfully run any kind of clinical trial, right? So we have an entire product portfolio spanning from our flagship clinical trial management solution, right, and going through to our TSM. We have a Cloudbiz EDC. We have a safety and pharmacovigilance solution. We have a patient recruitment solution, right? So we have all these different products, and they're all kind of built on the Salesforce cloud, which means that they can all talk to each other. And so that's really Cloudbiz. Our mission is to really make it simple for sponsors, CROs, and site networks to run their clinical trials and get their drugs to market faster. Right. And so because we are talking today about a cloud-based application, right, similar to ours, right, in terms of validation and how important that is, we know that being validated and being compliant is incredibly important. So to that end, our entire solution is FDA 21 CFR Part 11 compliant. Our platform is GXP and GANT5 compliant, right? We maintain the PHI standards, in accordance to HIPAA and various other regulations. Recently, Cloudbiz was ISO 27701 certified, as well as ISO 9001 certified. So that's just the long and the short about Cloudbiz. So let's go ahead and jump into the cloud deployment market trends. So Rajendra, please
Thank
take it away.
you once again, Dushyant, and it's a wonderful overview on Cloudbiz and its product. So before proceeding to the main topic, that is challenges in validating cloud application, so I would like to share the current trend on the cloud deployment throughout the global, as well as analysis of the United States cloud computing market size growth. Move to the next slide. So here, according to the analysis from the International Data Corporation, IDC, there is a net compound annual growth of 16.7% year-on-year increase in the cloud deployment. In this slide, you can clearly see that from 2018 to 2022, there's a net growth of 16.7%. And here you can see the prediction till 2024. So which clearly states that the cloud deployment gradually increases as we move ahead in the year. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes. So another analysis by Grant Viewer Research Industries, adoption of cloud in each industry sector is about 14.9% year-on-year growth. Here in this slide, you can clearly see that the market related to IT, telecom, manufacturing, energy, utilities, all are growing steadily at 14.9% and every year. So what it clearly shows is that life science industries are also adopting to cloud computing. The main reason for the change, moving to from the on-premise to cloud is, if you go by traditional practice, the maintenance of the data server, storing the data assets, and running complete network system is expensive and cumbersome to manage, right? So, and another factor, that to bring any drug to the market, it will take 10 years, and the investment ranges from 1.3 to 1.5 billion dollars. Okay, the current the COVID pandemic situation changed this dramatically. So of course COVID is a big tragedy from the global perspective, but it brings a lot of technological innovations. So if you look back 2 years journey, that is 2020 and 2021, there are about more than 6 different vaccines are approved in less than a year. So life science companies across the globe spent around 4 billion in the span of 2 years to get those drugs to the market. With this, we can understand one thing: drug can be introduced to the market at lesser time by spending much higher cost along with the technological innovations. So to expedite the clinical trials nowadays, CROs, they are demanding a tool which is robust, validated, complying all rules and regulations set by regulatory agencies. And also they want the patient data on their fingertips at any point of time, right? So this growing demand, to answer for this, on the growing demand, a cloud application is the solution. So here, you know, uh, the uh, the solution also brings certain challenges. So on-premise validation is something different than the challenges are different in cloud-based applications, right? So here I would like to put the challenges at two categories. One is the challenges or factors to be considered during the development of new cloud application or deployment of new cloud application. And the second challenge or second scenario is that the factors you need to be considered during the migration of on-premise, that is existing or old application to the cloud applications. Okay, let me talk on the first scenario. So move to the next slide. So here, let's talk on the first scenario. That is, what are the challenges, typical challenges one can face during the deployment of new applications. So if we put all the challenges, together, that is, I will categorize at 4 buckets. One is security, reliability, compliance, and operating controls. So if we see the challenges under security, some challenges are network security, host security, application related issues, data related challenges, and also identity access management related challenges. Right. So let me talk on the network security. As you know that, as the data is accessible via internet, that is, we are actually accessing our application via internet, cyber security is very essential. The network should be protected from cyber attacks and unauthorized access here, so that you need to check what standards the network provider is following. For example, at least the network provider here, what we call as what we call, um, infrastructure as a service. So those providers usually provide the network, and you need to ensure those providers are compliant with ISO standards at least. I mean, ISO 27001, that is ISMS standards, and also they have to follow NIST standards, that is National Institute of Standards and Technology at minimum. So, we are actually seeing IQ, OQ, and PQ. Now, one more trend is coming up. We need to see another qualification, that is cyber qualification, cyber security qualification. And if you visit NIST website, clearly it explains to comply on the cyber security, what and also rules and regulation you need to follow, right? So moving to the host security, security of the source server is measured in terms of efficiency. So it should prevent the cyber attacks and minimize the impact of overall attacks when it happens, and also it respond to attacks when they occur. So how to minimize this issue, right, or the challenge? The best way to control is to patch the image with security fixes so often, and also you need to keep a watch and logs of suspicious activity. Means you need to set up a team who can continuously watch if any intrusions are happening or not. And also there should be a mechanism or controls in place if any suspicious activity that will notify you that something bad is someone is trying to hack your network, right? And also along with that, you need to disable services and logins which are not useful. And also, like, you need to install some host-based firewall, or you need to ensure at least the service providers installed host-based firewall, right? So moving to application security, as you know, application security is nothing but developing, adding, and testing security features with application to prevent security vulnerabilities against threats, such as unauthorized access and modifications, right? So the application which you are building on the cloud, so are vulnerable. So how do you ensure that my application, the built application, is not having any issues? For that, you need to practice a kind of ethical hacking. You need to encourage some team, you need to have a team and encourage ethical hacking. So where, you need to test your application to ensure that loopholes are, are closed. And if any loopholes are there, you need to immediately close those kind of loopholes. Since cloud environment provides shared services, special care must be taken to ensure that users only have access to the data that they are authorized to view in their cloud applications. Here, my recommendation to use the virtual private network, because nowadays work from home is a normal thing, right, across the globe. And here, if you use a virtual private network, that adds a layer of mobile application security for employees who logs into the application remotely, right? So moving to the data security here, I would like to combine two more things: data integrity and confidentiality, right? So data integrity means the original data remains as it is at any given point of time, and it should not be hampered or modified by unauthorized person. So suppose in a special situation, if the data is modified, then there should be a log of what is modified, I mean old value, and what is the new value, along with the reason for modification. Right here, I'm talking about the audit trail. You need to ensure that you have some audit trail set, you know, in your application for the critical data, so that inadvertently also the user can't modify it. Right. So the next important factor is identity access management. So nowadays, as we are logging remotely, sometimes we log into the application using our laptops. Sometimes we log into our application using our mobile, iPad, and so on. Right. So here, to minimize the risk, you need to have a multi-factor authentication, right? So unauthorized people, if they want to try to log in, so multi-factor authentication, stops the hackers to log into the applications. This is about the security related issues. Next slide, please. So in the under reliability and performance, service availability, scalability, elasticity, and data backup and recovery are three major aspects. So if you see the service availability here, you need to have an agreement with the service provider, right? So it's typically, documented as a percentage of time per year. So meaning, see, in the agreement, you need to ensure that service providers agree that their services could be a network or could be like platform. Their services are up and running throughout the year. And of course, you need to set some expectation, like you need to say that, at least 99.99% should be the availability of their services. So if you calculate that percentage, in a year, 5 minutes as a disturbance, like you might have some issues on their services in throughout year for 5 minutes, that is acceptable, because they are almost meeting 100% there. The next one is scalability and elasticity. So in the clinical research, as you move from one phase to another phase, let me take an example of clinical phase 2 to clinical phase 3. Clinical phase 3 is a multicentric, as you know, and number of users are more in the clinical phase 3 research. And you need to ensure in that situation, the service provider, the services which you are which you have taken, that should be scalable enough, auto scalable, and which also um, allows the user to log in at a higher level, right? If more users are there, then it should be scalable enough to accommodate those users. And elasticity, your database should be elastic enough. Automatically, it should increase its database size. Say, suppose, in the clinical research 3, automatically you start feeding the data, right, more and more, because the number of patients are more, and where the clinical data and adverse event, if something happens, or CRF, case report forms are more. So there you are actually entering a lot of data. So you need to ensure that the database or data centers are elastic enough, right? And The next factor is data backup and disaster recovery. This is very, very important. Uh, in case of data, business continuity. So what is data backup? Data backup, is nothing but storing or backing your data, right? So you need to have an agreement with the service provider that on a timely basis, so that data backup happens. And it is, it's up to you whether you set up on a continuous basis where that your data is continually backing up, or on a regular intervals that you have to decide. And there should be an agreement in place, and also you need to set an SLA for that. And also you need to verify and ensure there is a disaster recovery in place. And you need to challenge that disaster recovery, and also get the evidence from the service provider that their services are able to recover the data in case of any disaster happens, so that business continues without any uh, issues, right? Next slide, please. Next slide, Dushyant. Okay. So here in the compliance, there are two things you need to take care. And basically you will come across the challenges around privacy and security, and also local and international regulations. So by and large, the databases of all license industries contain personal, patient-related, and confidential information, right? So the protection of the information is very important from the regulatory perspective. To protect the information, we need to validate the application by considering the HIPAA GDPR controls. So then question is, so do I have to comply with both the regulations? So the deciding factor here is, you know, uh, where your data center is located. So for example, if the data center is located in US, and if you are dealing with US patients and US customers, then you need to comply with HIPAA regulations. And if the data center is in European countries, then you need to comply with GDPR regulations, right? So you need to have certain tests at the OQ level, and also you need to check their statements. If you are taking some services, the cloud service providers, you need to ensure that they are having some statements around HIPAA and GDPR regulations, right? The next important factor is complying with local and international regulations. So each country has its own law in storing and processing the data. So before storing the data in multiple servers, as part of your disaster recovery, it is very important to check the servers are not in compromised state. Means you are dealing with US client, and you are storing your data in Europe, European region, right? So that's completely wrong. So that you need to have an approach, right, to ensure that customer and service providers are storing the data in a non-compromised country, right? And also you need to ensure that service providers are storing the data, and access and management are all handled in conformity with the applicable privacy laws. Okay, move to the next slide. So on the operation control, you need to concentrate on two things. One is change management, and other one is incident management. So you need to have a robust change management, because you are taking the services, infrastructure as a service, or you might be taking platform services, or you might be relying completely on the web services. That is what we call it as SaaS, right? So here you need to ensure that you have a robust change management, and you need to agree with the service provider. Without your knowledge, they should not upgrade their system, right? You are availing certain services from them, but without your knowledge, if they upgrade, and if that disturb your normal functionality of the application or day-to-day functionality, then that will create a big problem for you, right? So you need to have a change management in place, where you can take the approval from the change authority board, or CAB, or CCB, change control board, right? So that is what you need to ensure in this point. And incident management, here you need to educate your you know uh, employees. So if any unintended activity happens, then they have to inform you. Like, and you need to set up a team, a compliance team, which looks for incident. And if any incident happens, then there should be escalation in process. And also, if the incident is severe, then they have to take actions quickly. All right. So these are the two things you need to consider in the operation controls. Move to the next slide. So one more confusion is on the services which we are taken from the different cloud service providers. The major cloud service providers are, AWS, that's Amazon, and Google platform, and also Microsoft is also providing certain services, right? So here again, one more confusion is that there are four different deployment models are there. One is public deployment, private, community deployment, and hybrid deployment. And here, as I explained in previous slides as well, so the infrastructure as a service, where AWS is giving a few services, where in the cloud we call IaaS as cloud infrastructure services. Here the service providers offer services on managing applications, data, middleware, and runtime environment, right? So in this case, you need to take care of few things as a compliant person. As an auditor, you need to ensure the SOP on infrastructure qualification is in place, and also you need to have some SLA signed on the infrastructure. Like, you are using their infrastructure and there should not be any lag. And ensure that, you need to ensure that encryption should be in place, and that to be encryption should be at both level, encryption should be on data at rest and also in motion, right? Means if you are entering the data over the internet, and that should be encrypted manner, right? And also a strong firewall should be enabled in case of infrastructure as a service. So next one is platform as a service. And here a few good examples are Windows, Azure, force.com. The best example here, our own applications, the cloud-based applications which are built on force.com, salesforce.com, right? So in the cloud, we call it as cloud platform services. It is quite similar to SaaS, but it is a different in that PaaS provides a platform, right? So as a compliant person, before developing, you need to ensure that the platform is capable of handling the functionalities which you are planning to build on it, right? Build using that platform. And the other thing is you need to test its compatibility, right? And also you need to do a periodic audit, right, to ensure that the platform providers are compliant enough and they have all the data like related to HIPAA, GDPR, and they have validated their their platform according to GAM5 guidelines and so on, right? So and the last one is software as a service. In cloud, we call it as cloud application services, right? Here you run the application directly using the web browser, right? So, and here there's no need to install any application. So some of the example of SaaS are Google Apps and Salesforce, Dropbox, and even Slack is also a SaaS application, right? And also the GXP application is a DocuSign, right? So as a compliant person, so you need to ensure the SaaS provider, validated their application, using the GAMP principle, GAMP5 principles, right? And also, if you are changing the configuration after availing the SaaS application, after signing the SaaS application, after configuration, you also have to validate it based on the intended configuration, based on your intended functionalities, right? And also you need to ensure that backup and recovery works well, so without any issues, right? So moving to the second scenario, that is, it's a quite complex one. In the second scenario, it is like, migrating the on-premise application, considering, the as-is application and as well as like older application, on-premise application to cloud. So here it is a very complex thing, and definitely it needs a separate webinar to talk on that. but here I would like to compress it and try to explain briefly. So the entire thing, entire activity splits in three stages: discovery stage, assessment stage, and migration stage. In a discovery stage actually is figuring the disposition, right? So for easy understanding, you can consider disposition as a fitment of any application in relation to the cloud architecture, right? So there are six disposition types, which is widely called as 6 Rs, and they are rehosting, replatforming, and repurchasing, refactoring, re-architecting the applications, retaining the old application, and retiring. Okay, these are the six dispositions you can majorly come across. See, this is a special scenario where organization like life science industry is a pharmaceutical organization. They want to move their entire application. Entire means thousands of GXP applications or non-GXP applications, including both GXP and non-GXP, to cloud. So first thing is the discovery phase, and after deciding the deployment, whether it falls as a rehosting or refactoring, in which category it falls in. Next one is you need to create a landing zone, which is a part of assessment stage, where you are creating and you are qualifying the landing zone and also decide the migration pattern. Right. So a landing zone comprises of building blocks that cover fundamental elements of cloud deployment. So these blocks include governance, data security, network design, multi-account architecture, right? So after the creating the landing zone, you need to come up with a proof of concept and also like at least minimal viable product, right? And you need to move it. And here, everything here, we call it as infrastructure as a coda, right? So here a lot of tools are there, and AWS is having a lot of tools to reduce the effort, right? And once the qualification of landing zone, you need to test that application. You need to validate that application using the risk-based approach of GAM5. Moving to, please move to the next slide. Let's talk on expectations of regulatory agencies. So move to the next slide. So here I am showing important regulatory agencies across the globe, and here I have taken example of US FDA, which is a regulatory agency of United States. And if you take UK as an example, then there the regulatory agency is MHRA, which stands for Medicine and Healthcare Product Regulatory Agency. And in Australia, it is TGA, which is Therapeutic Good Administration. In India, at a CDSCO, which is nothing but Central Drug Standard Control Organization, right? So, so all this, the regulatory agencies and organizations like World Health Organization and international conference organizations, so they expect and also they safeguard the patient information. I mean, patient safety, data integrity, and also product quality. So, move to the next slide. Dushint, next slide, please. Yeah. So by and large, all regulatory agencies and also, the organizations, they look for qualified cloud infrastructure, and also they will demand qualified platform. And also they will see that whether the policies and technical procedural controls are in place. And also they are interested whether the data is encrypted, both data at rest and in motion. And also they are interested to see that monitoring mechanism in place to catch any intrusion. And also they would like to see an agreement uh, in place between the customer and also service provider, and also documentation around the change management and incident process. Next slide, please. So let's see how to ensure the compliance in this upcoming slides. Next slide, please. So here I have already explained in my previous slide, the majority of the challenges and also the resolution you have to consider to resolve any challenge. So in this slide here, you can see, the relation between the cloud, I mean, providers as well as the customer. So on the left side is on-premise applications. So these are some of the set of uh, you know the challenges are the controls you need to see. And on the extreme right side, you can see the SaaS. So both are opposite to each other. So in case of on-premise applications, all responsibilities is with the customer, right from managing the servers, validating it, validating the infrastructure, validating the application, everything is in the hand of the customer. Whereas in the SaaS, it is opposite. There, uh, all responsibilities are with the cloud providers. But of course, if you are changing some configuration, then of course, you need to do validation, one more round of validation on the configuration part, right? So, and here in case of infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, so here you need to set up a clear RACI between yourself and with the cloud provider, right? So if you are taking the infrastructure as a service, then server storage and networking part is the responsibility is with the cloud service provider, and the rest is your responsibility. Whereas in the platform as a service, so you need to validate your application, and also you are responsible for your data, and others are the the cloud service responsibility, right? So move to the next slide. Dushyant, next slide, please. So with this, I would like to conclude by stating 3 points. So having the correct RACI matrix between you and the service provider is important. And the second point is validation of infrastructure as well as application is equally important. And also on a timely basis, you need to monitor the performance of a service provider. So with this, I would like to conclude my session, and would like to hand over the control to Dushyant. So he's going to demo you some 21 CFR Part 11 features, that is electronic signature, electronic records, and audit trail. Over to you, Dushyant.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Rajendra. That was really great. Thank you for sharing all that information. All right, folks, and so as Rajendra has just said, right? So we will kick it over to the Q&A session, right, where Rajendra can answer some questions for us. There are a few that have come in the chat, so just keep in mind that we will be addressing all of the questions that have been shared with us already in the Q&A section. All right, so but yeah, so
Yes,
let
of
me
course.
share with you some of the questions that we have already gotten here. So let's see. Okay, so someone has asked, the logging audit trail can be covered under compliance. The question is, how come? Why we said that we kept that under operations?
That's a good question, Dushyant. So of course it's a compliance, but as you know that during the operations, we are daily operations. We are entering the data, right? We are directly interacting with the applications, and a lot of data we are feeding, right? So while entering the data, there could be chances on the day-to-day operations. Uh, you can change the data inadvertently. So that is where you need to ensure the audit trail should be in place. That's where I covered that in the operation section. But he's right, that also be covered as part of compliance as well. Hope I have answered his question.
Yep, I think so. All right, so let's see. We have a few other questions here. Let's start with this one. So yeah, someone's asking, so is Salesforce itself, the platform, GxP compliant?
Very good question. So of course, yeah, the best example, as I explained to you in my session, so we are, all cloud-based applications are built on Salesforce, right? We are availing platform as a service from the Salesforce. Of course, before availing the service from the Salesforce.com, so we have done a self-assessment where we checked, the Salesforce is compliant to GDPR regulations, HIPAA regulations, and also we did a self-assessment on everything. Like we have also, taken some kind of reports such as SOC1, SOC2 reports, and also like we ensure that they are compliant on GXP aspects. right? And they have followed some principle as explained in the GAM5 second edition. The second edition of GAM5 particularly speaks on the infrastructure, the cloud validation, right? So definitely the Salesforce is, compliant one.
Great. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So that's actually why we've chosen, of course, to build our entire Cloudbiz suite of solutions on top of the Salesforce platform. That's one of the reasons. All right. So somebody's asking here about the differences between HIPAA and GDPR.
So as I explained, again, a good question. So this is why, a common question comes to us. So is it the same? HIPAA and GDPR are same. So if you see the bigger picture from the security perspective, yeah, both are same. So the agenda is securing the patient information, both in terms of GDPR and HIPAA. So certain changes, certain differences. HIPAA is mainly from the, America side, and also GDPR from the European Union side. And if you see the patient health information details, for example, if any breach happens, according to HIPAA, that should be notified in 60 days. And as per GDPR, so the time is only 72 hours. You need to immediately inform the regulatory agencies and concerned stakeholders if any breach happens. And also, like, right to forget is applicable in the GDPR, means the patient can demand to erase the data. But in the case of HIPAA, so that's not applicable. So HIPAA is usually, where the patient has full rights to view their data. And also in GDPR, they have to take consent in each, for every bit of information. But in HIPAA, you need to share certain information, a few information to the other party, right? So that is the major difference between HIPAA and GDPR.
Great. That's a great answer. All right. So, yep, we have a couple other questions here. What is the multi-cloud?
So multi-cloud is like, a lot of multiple clouds working together. Here, like, storing storage services in a single heterogeneous architecture. For example, an organization using AWS infrastructure along with Office 365 from Microsoft in the same heterogeneous structure. That's a multi-cloud.
Okay, got it. Yep, that's great. All right, so somebody's asking here, what is on-demand self-service?
So on-demand self-service is like, you are actually helping yourself, in a layman's language. So on-demand self-services allows customer to use cloud computing as required without human contact between customers and service providers. So using the features on-demand services, consumer can arrange various cloud resources as needed. So suppose right now you want 15 GB of data for storing for storing some information, and you think that the data size, you need more data or no more space, so you can right away you can purchase the data. That is what on demand self-service.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Yep. So, Rajendra, I think that closes today's session. I believe we had about 45 minutes on the calendar here today, and so we are just over that now. So, team, thank you all so much for your time here today and kind of joining us for this Lunch and Learn webinar session. Thank you so much to Rajendra for all his great information that he shared. So, as discussed, this information, excuse me, this presentation and recording will be available on the Cloudbiz website. You should be getting a personalized message on LinkedIn with that link. And yeah, please feel free to reach out if there's any question. Feel free to reach out to myself or Rajendra, or you can go to our website and see how to contact us there. So with
So
that, thank you all
yeah,
so much. Yeah, Rajendra, go ahead.
yeah, so I would like to take opportunity to thank you as well as Saikat helping me to come up with this webinar, and special thanks to Dinesh Kashyap and Hari for encouraging me to take this webinar. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, folks. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday. Thank you so much.